Is it an X-Men? Is it a future version of Franklin Richards coming to visit his younger self? Is it an evil Reed Richards, the Maker? These are questions that people have been asking ever since a mysterious figure has popped up on the set of the Fantastic Four. If you are not aware of what I'm talking about, I'll briefly explain. There is a person that has been on the set of the Fantastic Four who Marvel has been doing quite an exceptional job of covering up who it is. Whenever this person goes outside the set to where paparazzi can actually see them, Marvel Studios makes sure somebody is with them and covering them up the entire time, just to make sure nobody sees who this person is. Now, some people have said, well, this could simply just be one of the main members of the film, like Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, etc., but they wouldn't really go to that length to cover them up to make sure nobody can see who they are, so it's most likely one of two options, or even both. It's either a very famous person who is going to be in the movie and they don't want people to see this person on set so they know that this person is in the movie, or it's a very famous character and their costume gives away who they are and they don't want people to know that this character is in the movie, or like I mentioned, it's both. It could be a very famous actor playing a very famous character, which is entirely possible. After all, this cast for the Fantastic Four is pretty stacked as it is, and we're going to talk about a very specific scene slash montage that we've heard is going to happen in the Fantastic Four that now has a little bit more proof to back up the report in this video, but we're also going to talk about who we believe this person is going to be thanks to some slight detective work by the internet. I've seen a few of these and they all kind of really look the same when it comes to Tom Hiddleston, aka the actor who plays Loki. Now, like I've said, I've seen a few people try to do this, but shout out to Reddit user ResourceNo5855 for doing this comparison to how the person who is covered walks compared to what Tom Hiddleston looks like when he walks. And for those wondering, yes, this is a tell about a person. People do walk in very specific ways. For example, Tom Hiddleston walks with a very wide stride and his toes are pointed up, more so than I would say normal. But basically the biggest thing here is that if you compare the two and you kind of overlap them like this Reddit user did, they do look really similar, like very similar. Now, we obviously can't confirm that it's Tom Hiddleston just based off of this. However, I will say this would make a ton of sense and would really start to tie in the multiverse saga kind of just even more so than it's already done. And let's face it, we've kind of had a rough start or just kind of rough period in general with the multiverse saga because of everything that happened with Jonathan Majors. Marvel Studios didn't exactly handle it the best. They completely switched course and they went from Kang to Doom. But it was a bad, awkward situation. They did what they thought was best, and here we are. But nonetheless, we are still in the multiverse saga, and it looks like the multiverse is ultimately going to be destroyed. And the way that Loki Season 2 left off Loki obviously set him up to be an insanely important person in the multiverse saga. And that's why this works, because we know the Fantastic Four is going to be taking place in a different universe, not in our main 616 universe. But we also know that the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Avengers, a lot of different variants, they're all going to have to ultimately end up in the same spot and start interacting with each other. And yes, everybody is expecting this to happen, at least in Avengers Secret Wars. However, remember the reports from major outlets like Variety and Deadline that state Avengers Doomsday could have over 60 characters in the movie. And there's been even more confirmation from industry insiders recently that there are indeed going to be many different teams doing many different things in Avengers Doomsday. And from what we know, they are going to be doing very specific things to stop Doctor Doom. And here's the kicker. We have heard for a while that the TVA is going to start to assemble people together, people/heroes from different universes to come together to fight against Doom. Basically a fight to save their individual worlds, but also the multiverse as a whole. And we can assume that Loki can see everything going on in every threaded universe that is attached to him. This was seemingly pretty clearly demonstrated by the end of Loki. At the end, we saw Mobius and Sylvie on some Earth, Mobius looking at a variant of himself play with his kids, and when Sylvie asks him what is he gonna do, he says, "I might just hang here for a little bit. Let time pass," which was a really cool line because in the TVA, obviously we know time doesn't work the same. So to his knowledge, since he had his memory wiped, this is kind of the first opportunity that he actually has to let time literally pass. But with that last line, we then hear whispers of that Loki is seemingly hearing when he's monitoring all of the threads that he's attached to. This is pointing to the fact that Loki can indeed see into and hear what's going on in these different universes. So as Doom rises the power and starts going universe to universe, possibly destroying them, possibly trying to save them, but destroying them in the process, whatever it may be, we do know ultimately Doom is going to be the villain of Doomsday and Secret Wars. So whatever he's doing, Loki probably sees. Yes, he's probably going to be able to operate outside of space and time, much like Kang could, but when he goes to the universes, Loki's gonna see him. The TVA in general as well, but when it starts to get kind of too big of a problem for Loki to ignore, it would make sense for him to get involved. And Reed Richards is the smartest man on Earth. Wherever he's at, he's typically the smartest man. We've never seen anybody smarter. And I really hope the MCU doesn't change that. They've already kind of confirmed this in Multiverse Madness when they introduced him as the smartest man alive, so I'm assuming they stick with that. But since he's so brilliant, it would make sense that Loki would seek his help. So this might be Tom Hiddleston that we see on set here. But let me know who you think or who you want it to be. I do love Loki, and I will be extremely excited to see him return, and I gotta say, this does make sense, so I really like it, but I would really love to see an X-Men in there, like maybe Cyclops, or maybe this is a variant of Professor X who can walk. But I will say, they're clearly covering the person's face because we'll know who it is, and we'll definitely know who Loki is, and that's definitely gonna give away kind of a big part of the movie, I would say, or at least a big surprise that the movie is going to go for if people know who it is. But this does line up, as you can see here in this photo. The legs really do line up, and it does make sense that Loki could be in this movie to recruit the Fantastic Four team to help save the multiverse. And like I mentioned, we have a confirmation of a specific scene and a specific villain for the Fantastic Four. Set images shared by the Twitter account UnboxPhD, who you should follow if you want even more set photos, show us images of a subterranean underground mine, which is going to be Mole Man's lair. So yes, this does seem to confirm Mole Man, and it does seem to confirm that there are going to be scenes where the Fantastic Four face off against a fair amount of other villains before diving into the main villain of the story, which we know is going to be Galactus and the Silver Surfer. What we've been hearing actually is they're going to kind of show us a montage of the Fantastic Four fighting other villains, which makes sense if you consider the fact that the Fantastic Four are going to be very famous. This could show us how exactly they rise to fame. They get their powers through whatever incident that Marvel Studios is going to choose to do, whether that is kind of a classic origin going off into space, or if perhaps they go through some type of negative zone or quantum realm in the MCU that ultimately ends up giving them powers, but takes them from one universe to another, because we have also heard a rumor that they could be from our 616 universe, however, something brought them to another universe and they're trying to get back. We'll have to wait and see on that, but however they get their powers, they clearly become famous superheroes in this universe after they get their powers, and most likely the way that they get famous is by defeating a bunch of villains, and that is seemingly the montage that we are going to get roughly pretty early in the film. It's going to be, of course, after they get their powers, because how could they fight them without their powers? But I'm assuming pretty early on in the movie, definitely Act 1. What I assume is going to happen is the Fantastic Four movie starts, they get their powers through whatever incident that may be. We have seen them going into space. We've seen footage already of them about to go into a rocket ship to go into space. We've seen pictures of them in actual astronaut suits, so they may be going just with a simple original origin story for the Fantastic Four, but when they get back, they have their powers, and they may not reveal their powers until villains start attacking their city. That's when they come out, decide to fight, and beat one villain, and then another one, and then another one, until they become the famous Fantastic Four, because that's something I've always really liked about the Fantastic Four. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows their real identities. They know these people are superheroes. And I'm actually really looking forward to this scene. Even if it's just them fighting Mole Man, I think it's going to be really cool. But I think we see them fight a few different villains, and I can't wait to see which villains they choose to have fight the Fantastic Four, because remember, this is in another universe, so anything is literally possible. Heck, maybe they're fighting a different variant of Loki in this universe, and maybe that is why Tom Hiddleston is on set. If that is indeed Tom Hiddleston, I think that's the best guess for now, in my personal opinion, but go ahead, let me know your guess in the comments down below. What do you think? Is that Tom Hiddleston? Is it somebody else? And does the possibility of a montage scene of the Fantastic Four fighting a bunch of different villains becoming famous interest you? Are you excited about that? Let me know in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.